You know that old laptop or desktop you've got gathering dust somewhere? Yeah, you're definitely not alone. A slow computer is, well, it's just incredibly frustrating. But throwing it out feels so wasteful, right? Not to mention expensive. So what if there was a way to make that old machine feel fast, useful, and secure again? And do it all for free? That's exactly what we're going to dive into. We're going to see how a piece of software called Linux can literally give your old PC a second life.
And this is the reality for so many of us. I mean, the ATEX source points this out perfectly. Millions of people are still trying to get by with hardware that just can't keep up with today's bloated operating systems. Maybe it's a laptop that groans every time it gets a new Windows update, or a desktop that just feels, painfully slow for even the simplest tasks.
So that brings us to the big question. Is that hardware truly obsolete, or is it just the software that's holding it back? The answer? Well, it might just surprise you.
And here's the promise. Instead of forking over hundreds of dollars for a new machine, a completely free software change can make a monumental difference. This is where Linux steps onto the scene. It's an open-source operating system, which just means its code is free for anyone to use, improve, and share. And its claim to fame? It's famous for being incredibly efficient.
So what's the secret sauce? What makes it so efficient? It really all comes down to one word: control. Think about it. Mainstream operating systems are often packed with features and background services you will never, ever use. And all that junk is just eating up your computer's precious resources. Linux, on the other hand, can be incredibly minimal. You can install a version that only has the absolute essentials, and that means more power for the things you actually want to do.
So Linux sounds pretty amazing, right? A free performance boost? What's not to love? But there is one major hurdle we have to talk about. I like to call it the hardware gauntlet. See, while Linux is incredibly powerful, it doesn't automatically, magically work with every single piece of hardware ever made right out of the box.
And these are the kinds of frustrations that can make anyone want to just give up. Imagine this. You finish installing your new, speedy operating system, you reboot, feeling all excited, and boom, no Wi-Fi. Or maybe your screen is stuck at some tiny weird resolution, or your battery that used to last hours now dies in 30 minutes. These are the compatibility issues that can really trip up a new user.
Now, it really helps to know that not all hardware is created equal in the Linux world. Some companies like Intel and AMD are actually big contributors to Linux development. So, surprise, surprise, their processors, their graphics, and especially their Wi-Fi chips tend to work perfectly right away. But others like NVIDIA and Broadcom, well, they have a more complicated relationship with Linux. Their parts can sometimes need a little extra TLC or special software called proprietary drivers to get working properly.
But don't you worry, you can absolutely beat this hardware gauntlet. The best part? You can do it before you even commit to installing anything. All it takes is a really simple pre-flight check.
Seriously, if you take only one thing away from this entire explainer, please let it be this. There is one golden rule that will save you from 90% of all potential headaches.
And I'm not the only one who thinks so. As the Linuxana source puts it, this simple check is, and I quote, the single most important compatibility check you can perform. So what is this magic trick? It's testing your hardware with something called a live USB.
A live USB is your secret weapon. It's brilliant. You basically put a version of Linux on a simple USB stick, plug it into your computer, and reboot. Your computer then runs the entire operating system directly from that USB drive. It doesn't touch your hard drive, it doesn't mess with your existing Windows installation at all. Think of it like test driving a car. It's a completely safe, 100% risk-free way to see how everything handles.
In the test itself, it's so simple, it takes maybe 5 minutes. Once you're running Linux from that USB stick, you just run through this little checklist. First, can you connect to your Wi-Fi? Check. Next, play a YouTube video. Do you have sound? Is the screen resolution right? Check. And if you're on a laptop, close the lid, let it go to sleep, and then open it back up. Does it wake up properly? Check. If all these things work, you can be super confident that a full installation will work just as well.
Okay, and here's a little pro tip for you. While you're in that live test session, you can open a program called the Terminal, it's just a command prompt, and type this command, inxi-fxz. What this does is it gives you a complete, super detailed snapshot of all the hardware in your system. It is the best single command for figuring out exactly what components you're working with, which is incredibly handy if you ever need to look something up later. Okay, so you've done the test and your hardware works. Fantastic. Now we get to the fun part, choosing your new operating system. In the Linux world, these are called distributions, or distros for short. You can think of them like different flavors.
Each one has a slightly different focus and feel.
Now for older PCs, you definitely want something lightweight. H-Tech highlights 3 really excellent choices here. First, Linux Mint with the XFCE desktop is perfect for anyone coming from Windows. It's super stable and has a very familiar layout. Now, if your PC is really old, like we're talking ancient, Lubuntu is designed from the ground up to be as light and fast as humanly possible. And then there's MX Linux, which strikes this great balance between performance and stability.
As you're looking at distros, you'll run into this choice. Do you want rock-solid stability, or do you want the absolute latest cutting-edge features? LTS, or long-term support releases like Linux Mint, they prioritize stability. They're like a reliable family sedan, predictable, safe, and just what you want for older hardware. On the other hand, rolling release distros like Fedora are more like a brand new sports car. They're always getting the newest stuff, which is great for brand new hardware that needs the latest drivers. But for reviving an old PC, LTS is almost always the way to go.
All right, we're almost there. You've installed Linux, your old computer is feeling zippy and new. It's awesome. Now let's just go over a few little pro tips to fine-tune your new ride and make it even better. And we're going to focus on something huge for laptop users, battery life.
Here's a super quick and easy check you can do right now, courtesy of the Linux experiment. See, when you watch videos, you want your graphics chip, the GPU, to do the heavy lifting, not your main processor, the CPU. Why? Because the GPU is way more efficient at it. So in Firefox, just type About Support in the address bar and scroll down to the Media section. If hardware video decoding doesn't say Available, it means your CPU is working overtime and just torching your battery. Getting that enabled can be a huge power saver.
Now, if you want to get really serious about battery life, there's a tool you need to know about. It's called TLP. Don't let the command line part scare you off. It's this fantastic little program that just works quietly in the background, automatically applying dozens of smart, power-saving tweaks to your system. You basically install it once and completely forget about it.
And just look at what this thing can do for you. It intelligently manages everything, your CPU, your hard drive, your Wi-Fi, to squeeze every last possible drop of power out of your battery. For instance, it can automatically disable that power-hungry turbo boost feature on your processor when you're unplugged. It's like having a little expert constantly fine-tuning your laptop for maximum efficiency.
And that really brings us right back to where we started. That old computer you have, it might not be ready for the landfill after all. It just goes to show that so often, it's the software, not the hardware, that's the key to a great experience. So the real question to ask yourself isn't whether your hardware is obsolete, but maybe, just maybe, it's your operating system that is.